Okay, I think it's time to start. Welcome everyone. I'm so glad you're here. So if you have any questions during the event, you have a Q&A section on the bottom, and we'll get to your questions maybe sometime during the talk, or I prefer to do it at the end of my talk. So there is also a code of conduct. You can find the link. I've sent it to chat. So let's start. I will share my screen with the presentation and we'll discuss Python today. Yeah, so you should see my presentation. Yeah, so today we will discuss. Hello, Eduardo. Yeah, so I will try to read the chat if possible, but I will mostly be focused on my presentation and the talk, and we'll discuss questions later. So, what is Python programming language? My name is Ayaz Salikhov. I am software engineer at Jupyter. And today we will talk about Python, why people choose it as their first programming language. We will see basic syntax of this language. We will discuss why it is quite simple, why people love it, why people prefer to use it, scope of application of Python, and so on. So here is the content of my presentation. I will briefly introduce myself. Then we'll talk about Python and history of Python. We'll see some applications. We'll see how many people use Python. Of course, every language, every programming language has its own pros and cons, and we'll discuss them as well. So, and we'll finish by viewing basic syntax of a language, and we'll see a few programs, a few simple ones, and one pretty useful one. And in the end, I will give some recommendations. So, a few words about me. I'm a contributor and maintainer of Python plus Docker-based project at Jupyter. Jupyter is a non-commercial organization which uses Python a lot. It allows you to run Python interactively, to draw beautiful charts. You might know Jupyter Notebook, Jupyter Lab. They are all used by data science and machine learning community a lot. And I'm maintainer of one of projects at Jupyter. You might also be familiar with C++ language. I like this language a lot. I've been a Codementor community reviewer for some time, and I've spent more than 6 years in a high-frequency trading firm. And currently, I'm actively developing several open-source projects, mostly based on Python and C++. And I play the guitar. So, yeah. Before we start talking about Python, let's discuss what is programming. A computer program is just a sequence of instructions in some programming language which computer might execute. You can see an example of a Python program on the right side. Here you can see a simple integer class which also has a function to tell if the number is palindrome or not. So, what is a programming language? Programming language is a formal system of notation for writing computer programs. Mostly computer programs, they are written as text files, but there are some exceptions. So how many programming languages are out there? There are so many programming languages. In the Wikipedia list, you can find around 200 programming languages actively used, but some sources say there are around 7,000 programming languages. Actually, you can create your own programming language with your own rules, your own syntax. So some of the examples most commonly used programming languages are C++, Python, Java, JavaScript, C, Swift. You use them. You use the applications written in these programming languages all the time. You might not know which programming language developer uses in their applications, because developers might use many programming languages in one application. So there are so many programming languages, each has its own pros and cons. So let's talk about Python specifically. So what is Python? Python is a high-level general purpose programming language. So what does it mean, high level? It means that you can read it as a normal text, like almost a human readable text. General purpose means that it can be used for many applications. It doesn't have one specific domain like JavaScript does, for example. It's mostly for web-based applications. It has a design philosophy. It emphasizes good readability. Good readability means, what does it mean? It means use of indentation. It uses many sources to make the code you read as if it was a sentence in a normal language. It also emphasizes the quality of code you've written and portability of programs written in Python. So what does it mean, portability? Let's say your friend wrote a program in Python and sent you this program, and your friend uses Windows machine and you use Linux machine. Most of the time, there will be no changes to this code to run this application on your machine, so it will be easily run. You can also run Python on your mobile easily. So one of the most important properties of Python is that this language is dynamically typed. Here I give an example of a Python program and C++ program. So Python program is on the left and C++ program is on the right. So you can see that we don't declare types. So we just simply write x equals to 5, and Python will automatically know that it is an integer, that x is an integer. On the other side, you can see that when I use C++, I have to write that x has a type of integer. It's called int in C++. I'm allowed to assign another value to this variable, for example, x equals 7, but I can't assign other types to this variable. In Python, you can change the type of your variables as you wish. For example, you can say that y equals to the string ABC, and then you say y equals to x, and Python will know that y was a string first, and then it is currently an integer. So you can't do this in statically typed languages. Python can also be run in an interactive mode. So what does it mean? You don't need to run whole code, like the whole application. You can run it in bits and pieces. So you can write one function, execute this function, then continue writing your application while still being in Python in your interpreter, Python interpreter, and you will continue writing your application. When you're ready, you will execute new piece that you've just wrote. So it's kind of a nice feature to have. C++, for example, doesn't have this one, at least by default. So Python has rich history. So going back into history, Python, how Python was created, it was created thanks to this man, Guido van Rossum. And thanks to this man, we can use Python now. He was working at National Research Institute for Mathematics and Computer Science. It's called CWI, so it's in the Netherlands. So it was created. He started developing this language in the late 80s. Before Python, he was actually developing another programming language, which is called ABC. The name Python, you can find so many similarities between Python and ABC. Just if you look at two programs with the same meaning written in these languages, you will find many similarities. So Python is The name Python came actually unexpectedly because Guido liked the show called Monty Python's Flying Circus. He got inspired by it, so he called the language Python. The first time we have seen Python was in February 1991. It was the first publicly available release of Python 0.9.0. After that, there was a release of one of the most popular languages in the world, namely Python 2. It was released in October 2000, and it came. It officially came to an end a bit more than a year ago, in January 2022, and the current version is 3.11.2, which was released just a few days ago. So you can download this version. There was a bit of there were many problems with Python 3 and Python 2. You can see that Python 3 was released in 2008, but Python 2 existed till January 2022. So the reason for this is that Python 3 was not fully backwards compatible with Python 2, which meant that you couldn't simply run programs written in Python 2 on a machine with Python 3. So you had to change them. And moreover, if you had some dependencies, if you used packages written by other people, you had to wait until they update their code bases to support Python 3. That's why for many years people had to support both versions. And currently, you should not write Python 2 code because it's not supported. There might be security bugs, and you might have problems if you're gonna use Python 2 nowadays. So it's generally not recommended. Okay, so there is a philosophy. We'll talk about the philosophy of Python. One of the Python developers, Tim Peters, he called it the Zen of Python. So it promotes the idea of simplicity and clarity of code, and it could be applied to for other programming languages as well. Generally, you can see it by just typing import this in your Python interpreter. I will talk about Python interpreter a little bit later, but this then is available in Python, so you can always see it if you want to. I will read some points of this Zen. So, for example, beautiful is better than ugly. It means that if you write a code which is easy to read and if you understand it and if it's beautifully formatted, it's much better than doing it in an ugly way. Explicit is better than implicit. If you have some piece of code or a function which does something you expect and doesn't do anything unexpected, it means that it's a nice function because it does what it's supposed to do and doesn't have any side effects, unexpected ones. Simple is better than complex. I hope everyone can agree on this one because when things are quite simple, they are quite reliable, and complex is better than complicated. So if you have to choose between two implementations, choose a complex one, not the complicated one. So readability counts. This is where Python really shines because when you read Python code, it is just like normal English sentence. So if the implementation is hard to explain, it's a bad idea. I hope everyone can agree on this one. So if you can't explain something, it means that you might not understand it fully, which means that you haven't put enough thought in something. So you should think about this a little bit more, and then it will be easier. You might have easier implementation, and if the implementation is easy to explain, it may be a good idea. It's kind of a so you see these points, they are sometimes in pairs. If implementation is easy, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good idea because it might be wrong, but it may be a good idea. Okay, so because compared to many other languages, other mentioned languages, Python is much simpler. It's much easier to read. That's why we as developers are very happy when we use Python. So you can compare your maybe your friends using C++ and JavaScript. Okay. Python has so many applications. For example, everyone knows currently about data science and machine learning. So whenever you have an artificial intelligence system, chances are it was developed, it was created using Python packages. There are so many Python packages available for machine learning. For example, scikit-learn, TensorFlow, Keras, and so on. Python is also widely used for web development. Of course, in our everyday life, we don't see like typing Python commands or Python to be executed, but it doesn't mean that it's not like run in some other application. You might not know it, but you can come across Python many times a day. Also, if you have some daily task, some simple daily task, you can spend 5 to 10 minutes and implement your idea. For example, you can delete spam from your spam folder in your Gmail inbox. You can have a simple script which is run daily, which just deletes all these messages. If you're sure that your spam filter was good enough and you don't want to manually delete all these messages, you can write a script which will delete all of them. Or you have a website with many download links and you don't want to download each file one by one. You can use libraries in Python to collect all these links and download all these files automatically, which is kind of nice because you won't be clicking over hundreds of times to download all the files. You will just write in 5 minutes a simple script and you will be basically done. So that's nice. Whenever you have a complex mathematical model, you can use Python and specifically NumPy module to execute many different commands in matter of minutes. So if you are if you want to do some research in physics, for example, it's quite widely used. Okay, so who uses Python? Of course, I use Python, but there are many other companies as well. You can use Spotify and Google every day and don't even know that they use Python for example, for search engine or music recommendation system. Both these systems are based on artificial intelligence, and to develop an artificial intelligence system, you use Python libraries, as I mentioned. So Spotify has a music recommendation system. NASA, for example, executes complex mathematics in Python using NumPy, and Pixar has an open library written actually in C++, but it uses Python bindings to allow people to use it to use it easily. So they have kind of a project which can be used both by C++ and Python developers. Okay, let's talk about Python popularity. How popular is Python? So there is a website called GitHub. It is a website for developers to create open source applications mostly and to host your code, to be able to share your code with other people, to be able to change it. It provides statistics of languages used in these open source repositories. Here you can see an example of a few languages. I've actually chosen 5 most popular languages, namely JavaScript, Python, Java, JavaScript, Python, Java, and C++, and you can see that Python popularity is really high. So many pushes to source to people's sources, they use Python. Okay, so there is another website called Stack Overflow. It's a website where people can ask questions about programming, and other developers can reply to these questions. And it also has a survey each year. So last year they asked people who are just learning to code which programming language they are currently learning, and around 55%, 58% were learning Python. And you can see among all respondents of this survey, almost 50% were using Python on like monthly basis at least. So Python is quite popular both for experienced developers and junior developers as well. So as I told before, each language has pros and cons, and we will talk about pros and cons of Python. Python has simple syntax, and that's why it's easy to learn. It's easy to write programs in Python. There is saying like batteries included. What does it mean? There are so many libraries with written in Python, available in Python, like NumPy, SciPy, Scikit-learn, etc., which you can install in a matter of seconds and just start using these libraries. I will give you an example. We'll actually write a program which uses third-party library. We'll install it, and then we will use it, and you will see how easy it is to use someone else's library. That's why for many applications you don't have to write all the code from scratch. You can just install several libraries and use them. Okay, so Python has cross-platform compatibility and interactivity. I described them when I was talking about Python in general. So the thing that could be both plus and a minus is dynamic typing. Why is it like both plus and a minus at the same time? So if you have statically typed language, for example C or C++, your compiler will actually check for errors, and it won't give you much space to make an error. So you can't just assign integer to a variable which had a string type. But in Python you can. It can be okay, but it might be a problem as well. So that's why, but at the same time, Python code is easier to read because it doesn't have all this boilerplate with all the types. That's why it is easier to read and it is easier to write. And Python program generally takes much less space on your screen than the same program written in C++ or Rust or other statically typed language. Okay, so there are some cons. Python is really slow. It can easily be 50 times slower than a compiled language. But it's it depends on your application if you want to use Python or not. Why is that? Because your program might run just 10 milliseconds or maybe 500 milliseconds. You won't even notice the difference. So it might make sense to use a slower language to execute, but you will write your program in just a few minutes instead of spending a whole hour. That's why you will gain much more time. So it's slow to execute, but it is quite to implement your idea. It is quite fast to implement your ideas in Python. And it also has big RAM overhead for data structures. So if you want to read a lot of if you want to read a lot of data from your disk to your RAM, and you will have you're gonna have a lot of data structures involved. You might be out of memory, out of RAM, and you need to be really careful. Okay. So this slide is about Python being really slow, and other developers understand this. Okay. So as I told before, simplicity is prerequisite for reliability. It is a quote of quotation of Edgar Dijkstra, a mathematician. So okay, let's move to the next part, a bit more interesting, probably. So we will try to install and run Python. You don't have to do it like right now. I will share slides later, so you can you can read. If you skipped something, the recording of this talk will also be available on Codementor. Okay, so you can install and run Python in Windows, Linux, Mac OS. It's not important. Python runs almost everywhere. Okay, so these are just instructions if you want to do it at home later. And this is how it looks like. So in Windows, you have to open special application which is called idle, and you will have Python interpreter right away. And in Linux or Mac OS, you have to open an application which is called terminal. It's normally pre-installed, and then you have to just type Python 3 to open Python interpreter. Okay, so let's see a few examples of code written in Python. So one of the most simple applications in the world, and one of the most known ones is Hello World program. So this is a code which just prints Hello World to your screen. And this is how it looks in Python. There is a built-in print function. There is a string hello world, which is just a normal string in Python, and it will output hello world to your screen if you run it. Okay, let's skip to the next one, because you can't do a lot of things without variables in any programming languages. So you have to have variables. There are many built-in simple times. I won't talk. I won't talk about. I will talk about numbers, strings, and logical values. So numbers are represented by integers and float numbers. You simply write, for example, a equals to 2023, and you will get a value 2023 assigned to a variable named a. Or you can have a pi value. To have strings, you simply quote a string and you assign it to some variable. And you also have logical values. They are also called Boolean variables to check if some statement is true or not. For example, you might have if statements, while statements. They are called loop. So yeah, you have if and while statements, and they use logical values to check if some condition is true, and they change the behavior of your program based on these conditions. Okay, so there are also built-in collections. The most popular ones are lists and dictionaries. List is a sequence of objects, so it has you can address any element in this sequence, and you can also have different types in this sequence. You can see that I have 0, 10, and a string ABC in the same sequence. It's not always available in other programming languages. For example, in C++, you might only have the same type of values in one collection. So if you have like a vector, it can only be a vector of integers or vector of strings. You can't have both. Okay, there are also dictionaries which allow you to get a value if you have some key. So, for example, if I have a dictionary D like this, if I just say D, find me a value by key lecturer, it will tell my name. It will be so it's going to be Ayaz Salikhov. It's quite easy and fun to use, and you can also see that I'm using different types in this dictionary. So all the keys are string in this case, but the values are datetime.date and datetime.time and a string. So you can mix the types of values, which is kind of nice. Okay, so let's try to define some function. To define a function in Python, you simply put a keyword def, which means define. Then you put the name of your function. In this case, I implement like one of the most simple functions in the world. It's called sum. And then you put the names of your input variables, and your function returns some return value. In this case, it's just a plus b. You can see that I haven't written the types of variables a and b, which means that this function will work for many types. You can pass integers, and it will give you some of these integers back. You can pass strings, and it will give you like a concatenation of these strings back. You can pass floats and many other types as well. But if you pass, for example, an integer and a string, it will give you an error during write time, because Python is not allowing you to, it doesn't allow you to sum integer and a string. It doesn't make sense normally. Okay, so there are two types of loops, for loops and while loops. We are already familiar with the print function. It works with integers, it works with strings, and it just prints something to your screen. In this case, in a for loop, we iterate over a range of 3 elements. Range of 3, it's like a magical built-in Python function which will give you a range from 0 to 2 included. It doesn't include 3. That's why we will write 0, 1, and 2 to the screen. And while loop, it executes until condition in a while loop is false. So when j variable will become at least 7, this loop will stop executing, and this small program will print numbers 2, 4, and 8 to your screen. Okay, so we might have forgotten something. There's actually a thing called entry point to your program. If you're familiar with C, C++, there is a main function which is run first whenever your program starts. Whenever you start executing your program, it will run main function first. In this case, we can just say that we run main function, and you can also see that we use lots of indentation here. You don't have any semicolons at the end of each line, and we have like these beautiful looking blocks of code. So if we have an if statement, and if we have some code which should be executed if the statement is true, we just indent it using 4 more spaces. So in this case, we assign the value of 30 to the variable x. Then we check the condition. So this condition is false. That's why 30, of course, it's not less than 5. The condition is false, and we go to the else branch, and then we'll start executing all the lines which are written in the else block. So in this case, we'll just print that the value is quite large, and basically our program will stop executing, so it will stop. Okay, so this is how other programming language, namely Java, would look like if it was written in a Python style. As I told, Python use indentation to show how code should be executed, but other programming languages they use braces and semicolons for that. But if you format Java code uh, in in like Python manner, you might see something like this, but you don't have to write your Java code like this. Don't do this, because other programming languages, they have their own rules, and there are reasons, of course, for that. So okay, and in the end, I want to give you an example of a useful program. Let's say you have some text in text.txt file. That's a simple file containing, for example, some novel or something, or message from a friend, and you need to print out all the sentences where some given word occurs. Because we assume this file, this text, to be a natural language, we will use Spacey library, which is designed to work with human text. So you simply Google a library with natural language processing, and you'll find a library which has features you want it to have, and you start using this library in just a few seconds. To use some library, you have to install it. To install it, you type pip3. It's like a package manager for Python. You simply write pip3 install the name of the library. This particular library also has to download some vocabulary for a particular language, and will download English core vocabulary for English language. So normally you won't have a second line. It's going to be just the first line. So it's going to be pip3 install library name, and after that you can start using this library in your application. It's that easy, like just a few seconds. Okay, and here's the program. So let's start reading this program. I will try to explain you how it works. So first line, import Spacey. It means that we to be able to use functions and methods from a third-party library, you have to import it in your code. So we just import it, and we will be able to use classes and functions from this library. Okay, let's keep print occurrences function for a moment and read from the bottom. So we first declare that we have some word to find. As we know, we can declare a variable with equals sign. So we declare that the word we want to find is beautiful. Then we use the built-in function open, which opens a file, and then we read the contents of this file to a variable named text. So text is going to be like a very large, very long string. Okay, and then we call our function. We call our function print occurrences with two input variables, namely text and word to find. So let's take a look at this function. This function, first, it loads English vocabulary to a variable named NLP, natural language processing. So to load, after that, we process our text using this vocabulary. So to know what is a sentence, you actually need to know how the language looks like. That's why we need to have a vocabulary. So we process our text, and now we have our doc. It's like a document. It looks like an object which knows what is a sentence, what is a word, and you can iterate over sentences and over words in a sentence, and we do exactly that. So we iterate over sentences in our document, and then for each sentence we iterate over words in this sentence, and if we see a word which is actually a word we want to find, we print out this sentence. And I took some Shakespeare novel, and I got this beautiful output. Of course, the word beautiful will not be highlighted in bold. It's just to demonstrate better that it found some sentence with this word. So yeah, I think that's it, and I will give you some recommendations. So there is an official website you can always use if you have some questions about if you have some questions about Python, if you want to download Python. If you're just starting and it's your first programming language, there is a beginner's guide to Python, which you can start reading and start implementing your first programs. And then there is a Python developer's guide. If you're a more experienced programmer, you want to know something about a particular function or class, you can use this developer's guide. There are many online resources available, like courses and guides online. For example, Codecademy course and W3 Schools course, which will allow you to learn Python in an interactive way. So I think that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you for the attention. If you have some questions, please use Q&A section. You can also, if you have some suggestions, you can write them in chat. So. And now we have a time for Q&A. If anyone has questions, please type them in Q&A section. Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you. Okay, I will just wait like for maybe 10 to 15 seconds, maybe a minute, if someone has any questions. We have a first questions from Janelle. I hope I'm correct with the pronunciation.
Yes.
Cool. Do you suggest starting with Python as a first coding language or not? Yeah, I definitely suggest starting with Python, because it will teach you general concepts of programming, like functions, loops, variables, values. Of course, there are more difficult concepts in programming languages as well, like iterators, asynchronous programming, and all of that, and they are also available in Python. But first you need to know what is a variable, what is a value, how can you assign variables and values, what you can do in a programming language, and all these like simple things, they are really simple in Python. That's why you won't be bothered how to express your simple ideas. So you will be able to write simple programs in a simple way. Not all the languages are easy to use, even if you write small programs, even if you want to express some simple ideas. So I definitely suggest Python as a first programming language. And as you've seen, surveys tell many people use it as a first programming language.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that was my worry. Plus, I've heard that too. It's more simple to use, but thank you.
So does everything in Mac is written in the terminal? Yeah, that's a question from Eduardo. Maybe I think you misunderstood a little bit a concept of a terminal. Sorry if I wasn't clear. So the terminal is like a programmer's way to run some applications, to run some terminal command line interface utilities. So there are many ways to write an application. You can, for example, open an IDE. IDE is an applications to write to write other applications, and you might not even use terminal at all. You can, for example, on the Mac you can run Xcode and program your application for your iPhone, and you won't see a terminal at all. So
Thank you.
you're welcome, Eduardo. Okay, so I have a question from Mustafa. Mustafa, I'm not sure. Sorry. Yeah, I was trying out something with Selenium, but the website I'm trying to work with seems not to like Selenium. How can I still build automation for such a website? Oh, wow, that's an interesting question. I had some experience with Selenium before. So Selenium is a library to do so-called web scraping. It allows you to pretend that you're a human which clicks some buttons, who clicks some buttons and tries to perform some actions on a website in an automatic way, like from Python, for example. And I also had a website which didn't like Selenium because many people, many websites, many developers of these websites, they don't want actually allow bots to perform some actions on their websites. They want real users. That's why you have like a captcha systems. Like Google Captcha and many others. So I was able to overcome this problem using another driver in Selenium package. So I used Firefox or Safari, and I tried to change my user agent. So if you know what that is, it helped me to change these things, and it started working. And I also, as far as I remember, I had to manually just add some sleeps to pretend that I'm a human, because when you're doing everything like so fast that the website detects that it's like you click 1,000 times a second, it's normally a person can't do this thing. But if you have some sleeps, sometimes websites they can't they still think that you're they think that it's a human performing these actions. So these are my advices. I also advise you to just Google Selenium. You can you can open the sources for a website, what the console of the website for the website tells you what's wrong when you're performing your actions with Selenium. You can also open Selenium in there's I might be wrong, there is a headless version of Selenium and the version where the actual browser is run, and you can open a browser and see what Selenium is doing, and you can open a console and you will see the error the website is giving you. So these are my advices. I hope I was able to answer your question. That's a great question. I did not expect this one. Okay, yeah, you're welcome, Mustafa. Yeah. Are we going to have another class again? I was not planning on this one. I think it's better. So as a software, if you want to become a software engineer, I really suggest you just trying start trying to write your first programs and not spend too much time on web or on video lectures, and then so start as soon as possible. If you start programming sooner, the better you will be, and it's going to be much faster than first like watching 10 to 15 videos and only after that starting programming. That's why you of course you can take online courses, but normally if you have a good online course, it means that you learn some concept, and then just in 5 to 10 minutes you will start using this concept, and they make you they make you write your first programs using these concepts. That's why it's better to learn a new programming language this way. So I hope I was able to answer Steven's question. So yeah, let's wait maybe one more minute if we don't have any questions. I would like to thank everyone for attending this session. It was a pleasure. Thank you for your questions. And if you have any questions, you can message me on Telegram. Oh, thank you, Ayaz, for the Selenium answer. You're welcome. Okay, so that's it. Thank you for your time. Have a nice day, and bye-bye.